Welcome to the In Shape Fitness Show. I'm Coach Kim. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are talking about legs and lungs. Breathing, your lung activity, is an integral part of all of your exercise work. But sadly, a lot of exercisers don't think about and practice really good, efficient breathing techniques when they exercise, particularly when they exercise sort of cardio exercise, training for races, training for longer, recreational events, in terms of the pattern of breathing and how to sustain a level of breathing that is going to help you through your longer activities. And also, even fitness coaches and experts in terms of helping people with their health don't utilize or capitalize on the significant impact that can be made by understanding the way that your breath works, the way that breathing impacts your body's movements, and then helping to develop habits that really bolster that activity, the awareness, and then the practice and the mastery of deep guttural breathing at times, and then systematic breathing patterns. You don't always breathe the same way depending on what activity you're involved in, but understanding those different patterns and being able to gear shift within the spectrum of breathing patterns that you know well is a really significant impact. It has a really significant impact on the way that your body is moving around and stays healthy. Now, we're going to also do, as I always do, a postural systems check, as well as I just put 5 of my favorite activities. So I often do these podcasts and have a particular purpose in mind in terms of what area of the body we're focusing on, or what function we might be looking at. But today, because we're talking about breathing, I'm just going to pick 5 exercises that I love a lot in terms of compound movements. You'll always hear me talk about my favorite exercises are typically pretty hard, first of all, but also that they're always equipment free. You can do them in your bare feet, and they are exercises that involve multiple planes of motion with pretty much the entire body. So you can kind of use your imagination for the time being. But let's go through a postural systems check to begin. So whether you are sitting right now or standing, take a couple of minutes to think about your feet, about the position of your feet relative to your knees, about the freedom that your toes have to move around. That's a big deal. A lot of foot issues stem from the constriction or restriction of the movement in your phalanges, a word I love to say, phalanges, in the toes, because your toes are boxed into shoes, particularly women and their beautiful shoes. So make sure that your feet can move around, your toes can move around. And then think about whether, if you're standing especially, whether you use all 4 corners of your feet, or maybe use the outside of your foot more than the inside of your foot, or perhaps you have flatter arches and you press into the inside of your foot a little bit. Try to balance that out a little bit. And the way that you do that is this really beautiful transformation. You're not going to see it for yourself because it's happening to you. But if you watch someone, just take a couple of seconds to think about where their body is in space. That concept is called proprioception. And it's sort of a beautiful transformation where the body lines up a little bit. There's a plumb line. It's this invisible line that runs down your entire body. So as we move up the body, I'll reference it a few times, but just thinking about the use of all 4 corners of your feet can trigger that kind of systems check, which allows your body to sit up straight, to take a couple of deep breaths, to push your shoulders back, to elongate your spine, and to really think about where all of your body parts are, to think about the placement of your head. So your feet are really, really important. You also want to make sure that your toes don't turn outwards. You want your feet to be straight. Now we're going to run up the body a little bit so that we can talk a little bit about your hips and your butt, because the consequence of sitting all day has caused your butt to stick out. And I hope you're giggling as you say it. It's actually really hard for me to say that and not giggle here because it's just such a goofy thing. But you're sitting on your butt all day. You are literally squishing your butt all day, and your pelvis, which is kind of like, twin sort of bowls, sort of plate bowl type things that form the connection that your trunk has with your legs, your feet. And your pelvis will tilt a little bit to the forward direction, in the forward direction, because of the seated position. And that's bad for the muscles in your butt. It's bad for your back. It's bad for your hip flexors, the muscles that line the front of your leg at the top of your thigh up to the hard bony protrusion that is your hip bone. So you can, as we're talking, you can feel that there. You want to make sure that you can tuck in your tailbone and then stick your butt out. So to go to each of the extreme positions, forward tilt and then straightening up, and forward tilt and straightening up, so that you can feel the difference. Even if you don't really have, it's a condition called lordosis, and you don't want to carry it around with you. You don't want to carry around a butt that sticks out. You want your butt to be in the right place. See, I can't say it without giggling. But your position, the position of your pelvis, also helps you zip up your tummy muscles and make sure that your trunk is upright properly. And that's a really significant part of your postural systems check as well. And then finally, you want to push your shoulders back, because the other thing that's happened to us in our sedentary modern lives is that we squish our butts, sit on our butts all day, and we roll our shoulders forward and peer forward with our heads because of all of the device use, all of the keyboards, the driving, the steering wheel on the car, and our thumbs tapping away on a smartphone that cause the chest muscles to collapse. That pulls on your back, and then it strains the back of your neck and your head, collapsing your throat a little bit by virtue of this necessity to be online, be connected to everything and anything that's going on around you, because life is so stressful and we all have so much going on. So hopefully you are thinking about all of these body parts and just taking a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, taking the deep breaths, and we're going to get into the breath part here. Really, really important for you to think about not just breath coming into your nose, but really inhaling completely, especially if you're just sitting, listening to me, trying to improve your physical existence. Inhale until you can't inhale anymore, and let that oxygenated air flow down to the smallest of the smallest parts of your lungs, those individual sort of broccoli-like protrusions within the lung tissue that interact with the fluids and the blood supply to take carbon dioxide out, put oxygen in, and then recirculate that blood through the heart again so that the tissues in your body get what they need. So inhaling deeply through your nose, really, really important to exhale as well. And for, again, the purposes of listening and learning, inhale deeply through your nose, exhale deeply through your mouth. I call it smelling the air and bellowing the air, because I want you to breathe out forcefully. And that, to me, is like a bellow. It takes a couple of seconds longer to do the inhale part. The exhale part, though, again, you can modulate these patterns in any shape or form for your own purposes, and it's all good for your oxygen levels and your body's ability to process the gases coming in and going out of your body. But you certainly need to practice the basics, and that's that deep inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Now, I write a lot about patterns of breathing and talk to runners primarily about breathing because of the body's need for oxygenated blood at times of extreme physical endurance. And since I am a long distance coach for the New York City marathon and half marathons in New York City with the New York Roadrunners Club, I talk a lot about runner breathing and the significant impact that understanding your breathing patterns in accordance with your cadence and how that really helps keep you going, especially during those tough times, those tough miles when your body is starting to get tired. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I just want to talk for a second about some of the ancient teachings, stressing that the breathing and yoga breathing and flexibility, if you will, were all such ancient history of the benefits of the physicality of the human being. And I'm really not a spiritual person, actually. I've never been able to get into the practice of yoga in terms of that component of it, because in my personal life, it's just a little too much. I tend to need the science more. I tend to need the urgency more, and I definitely have way too much to do to go and, practice in a very quiet space for a period of an hour or maybe more. These techniques when, I feel like I've got about 5 minutes to exercise, and that's pretty much all I do. But there is inner peace achieved through the controlled, thoughtful breathing, and it allows your body's tissues to relax and become more receptive to improvement. It helps learning. So we're sitting here talking, and you're kind of in a learning position. You're the student. I'm the teacher in this relationship that we have, where you're listening to this podcast. Hopefully, you'll also be a client, and I will be the coach as you're going to do the first exercise in just a couple of seconds. But this is this deep breathing pattern that I'm professing to you as important to your body is also really important in terms of your learning capabilities, to be able to relax your body, to not be tense and sort of stressed or thinking about something else that's going on, thinking about the next activity that you've got to get to, but rather inhaling deeply, exhaling deeply and forcefully, and allowing your body and brain to take in the information that you're learning. So let's do the first exercise, because the very first thing that I want you to do is really, really easy, but it's a really basic exercise, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a twist to it. In fact, most of these exercises are basic movements. This one is a standard squat, but I'm going to add something to this squat to bring in a different dimension and help elevate your heart rate a little bit as you're doing it. So if you're not able to do a standard squat and you can't do the little twist, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But at least take a few moments, no matter what your ability levels are and ability level is, and think about the placement of your feet, sitting into a chair, whether it's an imaginary chair because you know how to do a squat, or a real chair where you sit your butt down and then stand back up. And when you stand back up, you use your brain to make a connection to your butt to lift your body straight up. Instead of, and I see this all the time, even from people that are fit, bending forward at the waist and using some muscles in the back and a lot of the thigh, the quads, to do this work. They are going to do some of the work, but you really want the butt to engage. Now, your butt, whenever I talk about the butt, I giggle. Now, your butt, as a result of the squishiness, sitting on it, and the pelvic tilt and sticking out, all that stuff, one of the main, sort of biomechanical things that's happening that makes it difficult to do a squat properly is the loss of neuroreceptor activity in the tissue. So your muscles, they're basically saying, we give up, you don't need us, forget it. We're just gonna let the sensory receptors turn off, go to sleep, we're dormant, leave us alone. And you've got to wake them up. And the way that you do that is by using your brain to connect to your butt and squeezing your tushy as you lift yourself up. Now, the twist on the standard squat, if you can do it, is a twist of the body, actually. A little hop at the top with a 180-degree turn. So you stand up and hop and twist around so that if you're facing forward, you turn around till you face the rear. And if you can't do it 180 degrees, make it a 90-degree turn, just to alter your sense of balance, to alter your vestibular system or activate your vestibular system, which is your inner ear equilibrium. You're going to sit down, stand up and hop. As you are hopping, your body twists and turns and you land in 180 degree difference or 90 degrees, but just do that a couple of times, maybe in both directions. Don't make yourself dizzy. A little dizziness is okay, but you definitely don't want to make yourself dizzy. And that is a squat twist. And that is the first exercise. I love doing this move because, well, mostly because the clients that I see in New York City that work with my company In Shape Fitness, a lot of them are older, aging exercise work. And even though they may not do very much of a hop, in some cases it's not really a hop at all, the movement in the different dimension, just turning the body, interacting with what's going on to your right or to your left, helps keep that inner ear equilibrium, prevent it from completely going to sleep. And the dormancy will, is the thing that makes people fall down. And that is a really unfortunate condition that is the reality for a lot of aging people. So we talk about inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. This is a seriously significant part of exercising efficiently. And mouth breathing, now I'm going to talk a little bit of science here because mouth breathing is so common. And the commonality of mouth breathing, it runs the gamut in exercising. Now, you might be in a yoga class in a studio where there is someone paying close attention to watching people breathe and paying close attention. If your mouth is agape, if it appears that you are breathing through your mouth, someone might tap you on the shoulder and tell you to correct that. But oftentimes people just inhale through their mouths, exhale through their mouths. And the thing that's happening where the science gets involved is that the receptors that reside in your nose is a very important piece of your mechanics, your anatomy, not just, in terms of the way you look as a person, but in terms of the way you interact with your environment. Your nose has all of these receptors. There's an amazing book called The Emperor of Scent. Is one of my favorite books. Even my 9-year-old little girl read this book because it's so fascinating. It's really about the fragrance industries, and she loves perfume, but she learned a little bit about the way that the nose works. There's like a spectroscope inside of your nose that takes in particles, really, microscopic particles that help identify different smells. But also there are receptors in your nose that take in the air that you're inhaling. And when you filter the air coming into your body through these receptors in your nose, part of your brain is triggered called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the executive part of your brain, sort of the mammalian, human, modern part of the brain, as opposed to the more primitive fight or flight parts of the brain called the sympathetic nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system allows your body to regulate hormones and your heart rate and your neuromuscular response to the things that your body is doing. So by breathing in through your nose, you are better able to manage your body's reaction to the stimuli, whether it's in exercise or in a meeting or in an argument with, your neighbor over the noise or your spouse over a bill or for any situation whatsoever. If you inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, there is a physiological reason to allow that pattern, to develop that pattern, to practice it, learn it, practice it, and then tell somebody else. Because the truth is, once you start teaching someone this, it actually helps you master it even more. It helps you internalize because you have to explain it to somebody else. So make sure you tell at least one person after you listen in to the rest of this. Okay, I'm going to do a second exercise now because I want to make sure that we get finished by 30 minutes. And I've only done one exercise so far. The postural systems check doesn't really count as one. So the second one that we're going to do is a crab kick. This is on the floor, and it's in a position known as tabletop. And I like this position. There are all kinds of crab reach, crab crab swings and crab kicks and crab walks that you can do, tricep dips in the tabletop position. The folding tabletop is one. But I like this crab kick because it is amazingly difficult and cardiovascular in terms of its tax on your body, which forces you, of course, to think more significantly about the way that you're breathing. So you sit down on the floor, just sit on your butt, and then bend your knees and put your feet down on the floor and put your hands beside your butt with your fingers facing forward. Your fingers face your toes or your heels or both. And you want to make sure that you splay your fingertips and use the full hand. Don't just mash the heel of your hand into the floor. Then lift your body up. Now, it's hard to hold your body up in this position with your spindly lower legs and your spindly arms. However, and if you only lift up and lower your body back down to the seated position, that's fine too. But you can do that over and over again. And that even is a little bit of an exercise. In fact, I just was doing this with a 90-year-old client a few minutes ago where we lift him up. He just sits up and then lowers back down. Doesn't do the leg part of the movement. But now you're in the sort of tabletop position if you're up there. And that's called also the crab position. And you're going to lift up one knee and kick out a foot. And then lift up the other knee and kick out a foot. So that is the crab kick. About 30 to 45 seconds, maybe 60 seconds of this. So healthy for you. And then in the tabletop position, as you probably know if you've listened to other podcasts, I do the folding tabletop maneuver every single morning. That's one of the exercises I do as part of my morning ritual. And I love this position. It really opens up the chest and really forces the body to work in all dimensions of movement. So that is that exercise. Okay, now, the one thing about the exercise that I master in my own life because of my profession is running. And the thing I want to talk about next has to do with breathing and running and the pace of your running, especially when you are trying to run a race. And I don't train anyone really for short races, although I do sometimes train people to get off of the couch and just start running, because that really is, and that's sometimes like a 5K. But that's the sustainable plan, is to not sit. The sustainable lifestyle, it's the only lifestyle if we're going to continue as a race, to get off of the butt, stop squishing it, stop sticking it out, but to start moving the body and moving in a running cadence where your heart rate is elevated slightly. Well, I'm going to talk about that in just a second more, is a really important and very beneficial way to start, to start down that pathway of a sustainable health, recreational life. Your ability to move your body is the door that opens to an aging process that you don't hate, although I still am so sad about some of the wrinkles on my face, but still we're able to move. We're able to play with our kids as they get older, play with our grandkids as they get older, to throw a frisbee, to kick a soccer ball, to go to the beach and run around, to go for a swim, to run a marathon, whatever it is. And getting off the couch is a way to do that often. But the thing about running and breathing that is somewhat tricky is that, mouth breathing is common for recreational runners, for novice runners. But the other thing that happens, and I'm sorry if this is going to just really sound complicated, but it is important. It is the case when you are running and you're breathing, almost always, when you exhale, you plant your foot, your dominant foot, down onto the ground first. That's sort of an innate observation that I and several others have made over the last, this is probably 10 years just from my own personal experience in the making, true understanding of the significance, the impact that this has on people's ability to, again, run distances or participate in a significant event. Maybe it's bicycling as well, because it's the same with the dominant leg, pressing down on the pedal on a bicycle with the dominant leg when you exhale. And the reason that this is a problem is that your dominant leg absorbing the impact initially of that exhale means that the impact when your left leg goes down, because most people are right-handed, your right foot goes down first on the exhale and then the left leg is being favored even though you don't know that you're doing it. You're not putting as much of your body weight. You're not digging into the strength of the left leg. It's therefore not participating quite as much as the right leg. And guess what happens over, an hour, maybe even less than that, over a period of time when you're out there on a run or on a ride, your left leg muscles, soft tissues, starting with the smallest of them, which are those deep butt muscles, the hip flexor and the tensor fasciae latae, the muscle on the outside of the pelvis, some of the smaller muscles in the foot and the lower leg. Those are the muscles that start to lose out on all that freshly oxygenated blood and then the nutrients that are needed to continue to do the work that you're doing. So you end up with lame left leg syndrome, which is something I call that condition related to the cadence of your movement. And you can end up with chronic overuse injuries on the dominant leg. So the cadence for breathing is going to come up next, but I do want to give you another exercise number 3. I am going to go over a few minutes, I think, but I want to give you a third exercise. This one I love. It's really hard. It's called a rocket lunge. And what you're going to do is stand up really tall, and you're going to, rocket does a little hop as a knee comes up. You don't need to do the kick part. So lift up the left knee as you do a little hop, and then go immediately into an extended lunge, like a runner's sprint lunge, where you put your hands on the floor and the left leg extends all the way back out, almost completely straight behind the body. And then from that runner's sprint, you're going to go right back into another high knee hop, like a rocket, and then right back down. To do 4 or 5 on each leg. The work on the stable leg is the thing that is the hardest. So even though you're moving your left leg, the work is on the right side, and it is significant. Do 3 or 4, maybe 5 on each leg, and make note in your head of which side is harder. I guarantee you, if you're right-legged dominant, if you're right dominant, your ability to lift the right leg and extend the right leg back, of course, is not a big deal, but the left leg stability in that hop, and as you lower the body into that one-legged position with the right leg back, that is a very complicated or a challenging exercise, but it's also really, really great, really heart thumping, and feels really good afterwards. Okay, so the cadence for the breath, and then I'll do those last 2 exercises, and then you'll be on your way, is as follows. And you can practice this without maybe going for a run. But don't do this on a treadmill, because you want to make sure that you aren't putting yourself at risk for falling down. But you're going to take 3 steps as you slowly inhale through your nose. And then you take 2 steps as you exhale. It's called 3-2 breathing. And you pitter-patter, right? So the thing about running long distances is that you really want to be able to run. Your foot turnover is really important. About 180 steps per minute is the proper way, the proper cadence for your movement pattern, your lower legs. And you're going to take those 3 steps as you're inhaling, and then 2 steps as you're exhaling, and it's going to feel really strange, like you're patting your head and rubbing your tummy kind of thing, but try it. because the 3 steps in forces the first of the 2 steps, exhaling, to alternate between the right leg and the left leg. I hope that made sense. So again, it's 3-2 breathing as you run or bike ride maybe. You can do this also with walking, but it would be more like 2-1. Depending on how fast you walk, it could be 3-2. But you want to make sure that you're taking that exhale plant, the first foot that goes down when you exhale. The bottom line is this allows it to switch between the right leg and the left leg. Okay, let's do another exercise, because this exercise that I want to do is called a T stabilization push-up, or a push-up into a rotational reach. So what I want you to do, and you can do this on your hands. If you need to do the push-ups on your knees, you can do them. You just have to do them really, really slowly as you turn. But you want to lower your body into a push-up position with your hands on the floor. Your hands and your shoulders vertically line up, but your hands can, be a little wider so that your chest muscles can help out a little bit. And you lower your body as you inhale through your nose. You lower your body towards the floor. And then as you exhale, you lift the left hand up and turn the body to the left until your left fingertips point straight up to your ceiling. And then you lower your body back down, you do another push-up, and then you repeat on the other side. The push-up rotational reach exercise is another one of my favorites. And the last one is in the same position, because the last one is something I call a monkey jump. And it's pretty self-explanatory. They're a little harder than mountain climbers because they are moving both legs at the same time together. So a mountain climber is in push-up position and you move your feet forward and back like you're running, but with your hands on the floor. When you do a monkey jump, you jump both feet up at the same time over to the right, and then jump both feet up at the same time and jump over to the left and go back and forth, left to right. So those are at least 5 of my favorites. Our exercise database has 500 something exercises in it. And again, but the funny thing is that they're all building from pretty basic building blocks, right? So we had the squat with the twist, which is built based on a really simple building block of a standard squat. We had the tabletop with the kick, the crab kick. Again, standard position for exercise, equipment-free exercise is understanding the tabletop position. And then we had that the Rockettes lunge, where we lift up one leg and then extend the body down and back into a runner's sprint lunge. And then we did the push up with the side plank or the rotational reach. And then finally, the last exercise is the monkey jump, which stems again from the push up or prone position, really, really basic position that you should know no matter what kind of exercise that you're doing. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great rest of the week. And I'll be back next week with another new episode of the In Shape Fitness Show.